guys, thanks for watching this episode, and don't forget to support our Patreon. Just $1 or more will get you access to all of our content as well as other special features. And once again, as a special update announcement, we will be returning to FANEXPO Canada at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre from October 22nd to the 24th, 2021. And wouldn't you know it, a ton of special guests have been added, including Christopher Eccleston from Doctor Who, Giancarlo Esposito from The Mandalorian, Ray Fisher, aka Cyborg from Justice League, and Michael Roker from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm very poppin', y'all!
Once again, tickets are limited, and if you want to come meet these awesome guests, including ourselves, link in the description down below. Thank you all so much for watching, and enjoy the show. The following is a fan-based video review under fair use. By the Sword is owned by the Movie Group Entertainment, Hasan Entertainment, Foil Film Horizon Productions, SVS, and Jeremy Kagan. Please support the official release. Very good.
Ha! Touche! Excellent match as usual.
You've been really keeping my strength up. What's your name, boy?
They never gave me a name, sir. I only go by the number HR01D.
Well, fuck it, I'm not calling you that. Your name from now on is Harold.
Oh, shucks. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
No problem, man. Take the rest of the time off.
Alright, have a good day, Patient 92. I'm rooting for you.
Whew. Whew. Man, that's a workout. Oh, hey guys, it's BigJackFilms here, and welcome to another review. And as you guys can see, I've been keeping up my energy by participating in the sport known as fencing. Come to think of it, I haven't talked about that genre in film, have I? Yeah, these things are a dime a dozen out there. As much as I enjoy cinema, I gotta be honest, sports movies don't really grab me as much as other pictures that I spend my time on. So much so that I only have a few options when it comes to the ones that I have repeated viewings for. From the likes of Space Jam, Angels in the Outfield, and the critically acclaimed Rocky franchise. But other than those, that's it. Funny side note to that, remember when I did my top 10 greatest movie sword fights a few years ago? Well, during my research on that particular episode, I came across a film that completely slipped under my radar, that when I finally watched it, it actually made my honorable mentions list, and I only discovered the film recently. So for the film's 30th anniversary, I figured I'd give this forgotten foil the recognition it deserves. That, of course, being the 1991 swashbuckler sports movie, By the Sword. Starting off with an artsy film until moving into a subway transition out of a Ninja Turtles movie, the film stars Oscar winner F. Murray Abraham as Maghsoudi, who has just been released from prison to restart his life in New York City. However, his first stop is obviously to find a job, so he visits an isolated championship fencing school where several students are taught the fine art of the blade, including a newly recruited student played by Lily! Hey, it's Mia Sarah, who played Princess Lily in Ridley Scott's Legend. Oh, she's so adorable. I get the feeling she's going to be a recurring actress on the movies I watch on this show. No. Suba gets a job as a janitor, though his heart truly lies in teaching the sport rather than polishing it. God, that came out wrong. But as he becomes acquainted and liked by the students, it doesn't sit too well with the maestro of the school, played by, I swear I need to watch more movies with him in it, Eric Roberts. Tensions are high and swords are crossed as a rivalry is lit by these two masters of the craft, who perhaps may be more connected than both might seem to be, both eye to eye and by the sword.
He's in, boys! He did it! He said it!
Now, this is an interesting turn of events on this one, because unlike most swashbuckling sword fight-driven films of my youth, I had never heard of this film until recent years, really only discovering it doing my work on my countdown. So when I discovered it for free on YouTube, mind you, which is a rare thing to find nowadays, I took some time to watch it, and I was not only engaged in the story, but blown away that there existed a 90s sports movie all about fencing. As a kid, I actually took basic fencing lessons after The Mask of Zorro hit theaters, and had I seen this as a kid, I would have loved it. But as an adult, I appreciate it even more, and it also acts as a great fencing 101 for beginners, since unlike most movies involving sword fights, it's not as choreographed and uses real-life moves and techniques which follow the rules of the sports itself. But before jumping into the sword-swinging spectacle, I need to talk about the two leads leading the charge. However, in this case, I gotta be careful what I say first time around in this review, because this is one of those movies where I dare not spoil the story. So if you want to skip to spoilers when I talk about them, end the video at this point and skip to this point to continue. Maghsoudi is of course our hero of the movie, but without saying too much, is very mysterious. Having just gotten out of prison and knowing so much about fencing, the plot engages you to wonder his backstory and the mystery behind it. He never comes off as intimidating unless it's needed, but you do wonder what such a kind-hearted man did to finally be free of such a terrible life. And behind a great sports film is a story of a man looking for a second chance at life to redeem himself and his talents.
I don't want to be that man that went into prison. You get out of there, and everyone else is more human than you. Well, I don't want that for me.
Plus, this is a rare instance where the hero is not a dashing young man as we are accustomed to, nor is he a recruit training to become stronger. Here, he's actually already an expert or maestro of the arts, but tries to redeem his fallen title. It is something we don't see too much in the hero type. I mean, did you see what this guy did recently? This man who has balls of steel is literally a knight saving a princess from a dragon! They should be married and living happily ever after! Gentlemen, we need to step up our game!
What we got here is the helpless leading the hopeless.
Well, speaking of damseled princesses to be saved, while the students and the other characters are cool and all with different traits and stories, they are more so to support the main two. And even though Mia Sara was well known at that point, she doesn't really add much other than being a romantic lead and rival for the top student, played by Christopher Rydell.
I think we should keep our distance.
You got it, Jimmy.
But if F. Murray Abraham was not enough to attract you, there's Eric Roberts in this movie. Oh my god! Where do I even start with this guy? Eric Roberts is the most unappreciated actor I've ever seen on screen. You guys might all mostly recognize him as the mob guy Two-Face Diana in The Dark Knight.
Your driver.
And I'll admit, outside from that, I haven't seen much else of his work. But I gotta say, it's gonna be really hard to find a performance he's done outside of this character. He is so good in this! Playing a quiet, intimidating, intense, and aggressively teaching maestro. And what makes it great is despite the intention to play him off as a villain of the piece, which Roberts is best at, he's not necessarily evil. Unlike most sports movie villains, he's not a jock, he doesn't cheat, and he doesn't even show off inappropriately. Cause when he does, it's freaking badass. He just runs his school with massive aggressive classes and restrictions, only thinking about winning and being the best in the shadow of his own past. Now granted, some coaches and teachers are like that, and it's needed when it's needed in teaching certain things. But I guess in this movie, the only real danger the guy poses is his point of view on humanity, which, I'm not gonna lie, is kinda sadistic and barbaric. Like in this scene where he wishes he were stuck in the age of the Renaissance and Dark Ages.
You ever get the feeling you were born in the wrong age? We are both part of the modern world that has reduced survival to an art form.
Man, he must be into some pretty kinky shit. I'm pretty sure he probably shares the same apartment as Mel Gibson. He's even drinking wine like a Bond villain in this scene. It's so deliciously fun to watch him monologue and teach like that with that shit-eating grin.
Now let's have fun. Let's fence.
Eric Roberts is like the love child of Christopher Walken and Willem Dafoe if you stripped away the unintentional comedy and replaced it with charming, intimidating acting. And I'll even come out and say it, he does better acting than his sister, who unfortunately and unintentionally, I feel he's overshadowed by.
Thanks again.
So please, Hollywood, give this guy more work. He's a national treasure. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna be talking about the movie on Twitter and he's gonna retweet it. Oh my god, this guy is awesome! Thank you, Maestro!
I have enjoyed watching you both.
Now, as much as there are some other great characters worth mentioning, they aren't really the center focus of the story. But the two main lovebirds start off as quirky newcomers to lusting lovers and eventually rivals in the game of fencing. Their chemistry is decent, but they could have benefited from a little more time in a rewrite, especially since Mia Sara, despite getting some decent work prior with Legend and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, didn't really do much after this film. She's done some other fantasy work and a few other flicks, but since 2013 has sort of left the industry. Even Christopher Radel, who plays Jim, didn't do much after this film, as well as the rest of the students presented. Other characters such as Danny, Rachel, and the other students are just there for either support for the main characters or comic relief.
Whoa.
What is it, Miss Johnson? Something wrong?
Oh, no, nothing. I mean, that salute was exquisite.
Hell, most of the students are just there and only act to make the fencing school more busy and high class. Speaking of, despite its low independent-esque budget, I kinda love the way the film is shot, from its exterior location shooting in Central Park to the fencing school gym in of itself. I'm not sure if it was an actual gym, but kudos to the set dressers for giving it that Renaissance feel to it, from display items to the vast amount of fencing weapons and equipment. Given this film is about fencing in general, the movie does provide the three basic blades used in the arts. The main one being the épée, which a lot of people confuse for a foil. While the foil is much more of a training weapon and having its more simplified style of use, the épée has a much larger top guard and a triangular blade. Unlike the saber, which seemed to be Suba's strongest weapon of use, the épée is surprisingly heavier and more combat-driven, both on the film, sport, and for stage combat. It turns out most movies in the Golden Age used épée blades with saber and rapier guards customized into the weapons due to the épée's stronger and more sword-like blades for props. And with that said, let's talk about the sword fight choreography in this movie. Now, before we get to the climax, you might be wondering how the film portrays the fine art and sport of real fencing. Well, doing my research and talking with actual fencing masters, many of them stated that it's one of the most accurate in how the sport is done. Despite some theatrical exaggerations, since most movies featuring fencing go far beyond the sport to be absolutely ridiculous, from Die Another Day to Disney's remake of The Parent Trap. And for a lot of the cast, they definitely did their homework in studying and training to make their characters more authentic. Obviously, while fencing and sword masters were on hand for the choreography and stunt work, it was of course the legendary Bob Anderson who was the mastermind in organizing the swordplay, and I never get tired of this guy's style. Hell, his resume goes all the way back to the days of Errol Flynn with his first gig on the Master of Ballantrae in 1953. And his biggest contribution to this film in particular was the final duel. Now, there's not much in terms of the negativity on this film, minus the critical reception being mostly mixed, and the film to this day never receiving a full-on DVD or Blu-ray release. The story is a little cliche when it comes to the sports movie formula, coming off as a ripoff of films like Rocky or Karate Kid. However, it turns out that a few people who worked on those films actually did this movie. Despite being helmed by director Jeremy Kagan, the film was edited by David Holden, who was an assistant editor on Karate Kid Part 3, and Bill Conte composed the score. He himself did the score to both the Rocky movies and Karate Kid movies. Unfortunately, though, the score has never been released, and that's a shame since this is one of Conte's best scores. And the tone of those films does show in By the Sword. However, unlike those movies, this film, surprisingly enough, has an R rating, and honestly, I don't see why. Granted, there's some blood, swearing, and some mild nudity. Fuck you! But I don't think it's enough to earn an R rating. Hell, the PG-13 was only 2 years old, and if anything, should have been in that category. So, while this review is a tad bit short, let's end it with a bang. Or in this case, a clash of swords. Once again, like many recent reviews, it's time to talk about the spoilers in this film.
Who'd have thought Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father?
Thank you, Mr. Blow the Picture for me.
So let's discuss the final confrontation between the two leads and what the film has been built up to. Throughout the film, we are intrigued on Supa's past right away, from the opening scene to the maestro's curious interest on him and why his teachings are more stuck up and harsher than most masters would teach. In between, there are these trippy yet ear-raping dreams to a child being traumatized by a tragedy of his past, between two fencers in a duel to the literal death, which somehow is connected between the two characters. Over time, we see more of Supa's interest in the sport and what happened to him in his past quitting the game altogether.
You were a good fencer once.
I was.
Why'd you quit?
There was no one left to beat.
It all leads to two shocking twists. It turns out Supa was a young protege of a fencing master and, being an arrogant student, had committed manslaughter running through his master with a killing rapier. Now, you might be thinking that this will be essentially his redemption story to become a better student to honor his master for his own mistake that sent him to prison for 20 years. But then we get this.
My father was the best, you know. Everyone said so. He's the best. But he had this protege, and that boy wanted everything my father had. His medals, his championships, his acclaim, his wife. Ever the gentleman, my father challenged his protege to a duel, actually slapped the guy in the face with a gauntlet. It was a game to him, and the one moment in his life when it wasn't a game. He lost.
Yeesh, I'm not gonna lie, being intrigued into the mystery of this story for the first time watching it, I actually did not expect this. Obviously, when you got a film in the swashbuckling sword-swinging genre, you can't resist doing one of the greatest cliches in cinema, with what I call Princess Bride syndrome.
Oh my god. You're Princess Briding me right now.
What is Princess Bride syndrome? This is where your hero's father is murdered by the villain, giving him his goal to defeat the villain to avenge his father's death.
You killed my father.
You killed my father.
I killed my father.
You killed my father!
You killed my father.
As much as it's predictable, I can't help but love its simplicity. But, unlike most movies in this genre, it takes the Princess Bride syndrome and flips it on its head. While Eric Roberts is not really a villain or antagonist, more of a antagonist, how often is the story centered around the hero killing the father of the villain, especially if your villain has not committed any evils worth hating on? It leaves you confused and conflicted on who to truly root for, making the final duel much more engaging and intense, since you want neither to get killed. It basically becomes a redemption for both characters to let bygones be bygones.
This is a killing weapon.
And this is the fight you always wanted.
Throughout the film, the maestro is shown to surpass his father as a master to the point of losing himself to the promise of greatness, and his philosophy goes from being the best in the game to a full-on barbarian, enjoying the heat of gladiatorial combat of the Dark Ages.
What would be that feeling of a real blade entering another man's body? That initial resistance and that sudden giving.
It's a high for his character to drive himself forward to surpass his father and to someday either avenge him or despise him by respecting the man who killed him. And it's why he probably respects Supa. Killing his father wasn't murder to the maestro, it was surpassing the teacher.
You admire the man who killed your father?
I admire best.
Jesus Christ, what kind of Sith-inducing dark side ideology is that? This makes Supa's redemption much more emotional to root for, especially when he challenges the maestro to the final duel, only fighting with an epee and giving the maestro an advantage with the rapier that killed his own father.
You think you're a killer, huh?
Shit, maybe this is a dark side cult. Was Darth Sidious running the school?
Your hate has made you powerful. Now, fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side. No!
And the duel is awesome, making it as an honorable mention on my top 10 movie sword fights, and deservingly so. The choreography is spectacular. The camera work is well shot and edited, and the set allows a lot of great moments in this fight. Eric Roberts and F. Murray Abraham worked their asses off with Bob Anderson and his team, and it shows the amount of effort and time it must have taken to make the fight look authentic and suspenseful for the audience, ending in a draw with the two finally coming to terms of their troubled past and then making peace with their master and father.
Maestro.
By the Sword is a buried treasure of swordplay and suspense. It gives the sport a chance to shine on the big screen, the actors are dedicated to their craft, the music is fun with a massive use of Spanish guitars akin to the likes of Zorro, and the story is engaging and full of deep psychological studies, turning the tables on cliches and character traits. I'm still hoping this movie gets a proper DVD or Blu-ray release in the future, and it's a shame nothing has been planned for its 30th anniversary this year, leaving the film totally in the dust. But for now, you can find the film for free on YouTube, and if you can hunt it down, is on VHS. But this is one of the reasons why my show exists, to shine a light on films that I love that most forget about. And after discovering it, this film gets a gold medal of a 9.1 out of 10. While it has some cliche attributes that lower it away from a 10, it's still a fantastic flick and worth an on guard if you're interested in the art of fencing. So, draw your sword and give it a rematch when you have the chance. And there you have it, folks. By the Sword, an underrated gem and worth seeking out if you're a fan of sports and sorts movies. But if you've seen it already, what's your take on the film? Is it accurate to the sport itself, or is it cliche and contrived like most sword flicks? Let me know in the comment section below. So until the next video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. This is BigJackFilms signing off, and for now, I need to plan out my next set of reviews. Meta Control Operator, permission to contact Ratchet Von Stone's office.
Complete.
Another fine review, Mr. BigJackFilms. I see your research in film, and most notably fencing, has quite an interest for you.
Hey, it pays the bills, Doc.
And passes the time given we are doubling our security measures.
Wait, what?
The higher-ups have informed us that you will be kept under double security and monitoring requirements as a safety precaution. The team has noticed some odd signals coming from your portal. And of course, we can't risk you to jump ship during operations, which I'm sure you can understand.
Perhaps. I mean, with Halloween fast approaching, we can't afford any other horrors happening. Hey, that gives me an idea, Dr. Stone. It's an idea that I think could suit us both beneficially. In fact, I might be able to get the codes for you faster if you can work with me.
You're very generous, Patient 92. Cooperation is our speciality.
What if I gave you not only the tech you and your team need to make things easier, but what if I gave you a specimen that would advance your technology 1,000-fold for better research?
I'm listening.
Well, I thought, come Halloween, I could maybe review something related to a few monster movies.
Seems fair. Monsters, from our perspective, are a species that you fit in with quite well.
And with that said, what if I could give you one of those monsters in the flesh?
So, that is what you are hiding in that portal of yours. You successfully achieved Project FDT after all these years.
Yes, Doc. I confess. And I can give you access. Plus it gives me time to shave off this damn beard. If you allow me under supervision to show you how the thing works for the Halloween season.
We shall supervise it closely.
Done. And with that said, I'm pretty sure this specific monster would like to meet you guys.
Tell me, Mr. BigJackFilms, who is this friend we would like to meet? Given his intelligent cooperation, I'm sure we will get along with him just fine.
He goes under the nickname of Karloff. Now this lesson is over. Nothing's really resolved in this. Not really. I'm gonna end up being in the Dark Knight. What about you? Gonna win an Academy Award just like your sister? Oh, you motherfucker!